Hello and welcome to the Estate Planning Toolbox. Thanks for taking some time out of your day to check out everything we have going on here. My name is John Connor and I am an attorney in the Trust and Estates Group of Graves, Doherty, Heron and Moody, a law firm located in downtown Austin, Texas. This podcast is a client-focused podcast covering various estate planning topics, including wills and trusts, powers of attorney, corporate entities such as LLCs and limited partnerships, probate administration, and everything in between. Thanks very much for stopping by. Hello everyone and welcome to episode 3 of the Estate Planning Toolbox. Today I want to take a break from our recent series on the estate planning necessities, where in episode 1 we talked about the will and in episode 2 we talked about powers of attorney, and I want to use the information that we discussed in those podcasts as a launching point for today's podcast, which I'm calling Estate Planning for Parents. This is probably geared more towards expecting parents or younger parents, as some of the considerations will be for those with younger children, but it really does apply to parents of any age or even those folks that are not parents at all.
Before we jump into today's topic, it is time for everyone's favorite part of the podcast, the movie quote of the day. And today's movie quote of the day is "Fat Guy in a Little Coat." It's short and simple, but hilarious. And if you don't already know what movie it's from, and I hope that you do, then please stick around until the end of the podcast for the answer. And now that we've got that out of the way,
let's go ahead and jump into today's topic and go ahead and get started with what should be the initial step in this process. And that is getting all of your important documents organized. If you have young children or if you're expecting a child soon, you're going to want to go through these documents and make sure they are as you want them to be. You'll want to locate and review your will and your powers of attorney. If you don't have these documents, now's a really good time to go ahead and call your estate planning attorney, make an appointment to go in and see them and discuss these documents and make sure you get them prepared and signed up. If you have children, you need to do this immediately. And if you're expecting a child soon, there's no time like the present to go ahead and get this done before you're having to run off to the hospital and bring that new bundle of joy into the world. If you do have these documents, review them, and if there's any changes you want to make, call your attorney so that they can get that done for you and get that in place and taken care of as soon as possible. For your will, you're going to want to make sure that it is current and up to date. This would mean in terms of considering how your estate is distributed, things like personal property, real property, maybe you have a family heirloom you want to make sure it gets distributed, and then how the residuary of your estate will be distributed. If you are expecting a child soon or if you have young children, you may want to consider including trusts for your children in your will. These trusts are probably a topic for another podcast, but because there are so many options and variations that these can take, but you will want to be sure that you discuss trusts for any children with your estate planning attorney. You will also want to think very carefully about your fiduciary appointments. Obviously, if you have young children, you cannot appoint them as your executor, but you will want to make sure that someone you appoint is someone that you trust, is reasonably organized and efficient, because it is a pretty tough job being an executor. Same thing goes for trustee. These folks will be responsible for managing the assets of the trust, of which your surviving spouse and or your children are probably the beneficiaries, so you will want to be sure that you appoint someone that you trust and who is good at managing money and investments. And yes, you can appoint a surviving spouse as a trustee, and yes, once children reach the age of 18, you can also appoint them as trustee, but you may want to consider appointing them as trustee maybe at a later age or when they reach a certain age. If you have minor children, that is children under the age of 18, you will want to be sure that you appoint guardians in your will for your minor children should both parents die before the children reach 18. In terms of your powers of attorney, first things first, if you have young children, if you're expecting a child, if you're just an individual out there and you don't have powers of attorney, contact your estate planning attorney right now and get these signed up and put in place so that you have good incapacity planning in place for you when you need it to be. If you do have them, get them out and review them. Make sure that they are as you want them to be, and make sure that the agents you have appointed are, one, still the agents you want appointed, and two, make sure that the contact information, that is address and phone number for those agents, is accurate and up to date. If it's not, Again, contact your estate planning attorney, get new documents done, or get documents put together as soon as possible. One area that we have not yet discussed, but that we will discuss in a future Estate Planning Necessities podcast is beneficiary designations. And these will usually apply to things like IRAs, 401ks, and life insurance policies. You will want to make sure that you have beneficiary designations in place. You will want to have a primary beneficiary, typically a spouse, could also be children. And then you will also want secondary beneficiaries or contingent beneficiaries, so that if that primary beneficiary is not alive, it will go to those contingent beneficiaries. I really cannot stress how important it is to make sure that you have these beneficiary designations in place and that they work with your overall estate planning objectives. Again, beneficiary designations are a topic for a future podcast, but for right now, just remember that a failure to actually get these beneficiary designations in place can, one, have very adverse tax consequences for your intended beneficiaries, and or two, could result in the benefits from those IRAs, 401ks, life insurance policies not passing to your intended beneficiaries. So, in summary, make sure that you've got your wills and your powers of attorney squared away. Really, make sure that you have these documents at all. If you don't, contact your estate planning attorney and get them done and get them put in place. If you do have them, take them out and review them and make sure that they are as you want them to be. Make sure that you have your beneficiary designations in place. You don't want to end up in a situation where you've inadvertently caused your beneficiaries to receive less of a benefit than you intended them to, or have a situation where someone other than your intended beneficiaries receives the benefit of a life insurance policy or a retirement benefit. I also want to make sure that I stress that you should be reviewing your estate planning documents from time to time. The rule that I usually give my clients is every 3 to 5 years, take the documents out on your own and review them. Make sure the distributions are as you want them. Make sure that the executors and trustees are who you want, and that the agents you've named in your powers of attorney are still who you want, and that their contact information is still accurate. If there's anything you want changed in that 3 to 5 year period, call your estate planning attorney, have them updated, have them prepare the necessary documents either to do a new will or a codicil to your will or to get you new powers of attorney. Every 8 to 10 years, you should go in and visit with your estate planning attorney about your documents. There may have been changes in the law that benefit you or that would necessitate a change to your document. So every 8 to 10 years, make an appointment with your attorney, go in and visit with them and make any changes that you need to your documents. I would also say that if you have any major life changes that take place, that is also a good time to review your documents or to go visit with your estate planning attorney. Major life changes are things like a new child, a grandchild, retirement, anything that you would consider a major life change. That is a really good time to review your estate planning documents and make any changes that you want to at that time. So here we go. The answer to today's movie quote of the day is Tommy Boy.
That guy in a little coat.
Man, I just absolutely love that movie. I've seen it countless times, and I'm pretty sure that I can quote it from end to end without stopping. So that wraps up everything for today. Of course, here is my contact information. And again, if you have any questions or any topics you'd like me to cover in these podcasts, please do not hesitate to shoot me an email or give me a phone call. And thank you so much for stopping by and checking again soon for our next podcast.